There you are. Well, today we have the tool Lachlan gave me and Winkler. So, let's start. And H18 is beginning. I love those cups. They begged him not to dare to leave them. They offered him dragon gold and silver and jewels, but he would not change his mind. We shall see, he said, and I think I have earned already some of your dragon gold when you have it. After that they stopped pleading. Then they took off their clothes and bathed in the river, which was shallow and stony and clear at the ford. When they had dried in the sun, which was now strong and warm, they were refreshed, if still sore and a little hungry. Soon they crossed the ford, carrying the hobbit, and they began to march through the long green grass and down the lines of wide-armed oaks and the tall elms. And why is it called the Carrack? Asked Bilbo as he went along at the wizard's side. He called it the Carrack, which is because Carrack is his word for it. He calls things like that Carracks, and this one is the Carrack because it's the only one near his home, and he knows it well. Who calls it? Who knows it? The somebody I spoke of, a very great person. You must all be very polite when I introduce you. I shall introduce you slowly, 2 by 2, I think, and you must be careful not to annoy him, or heaven knows what will happen. He can be appalling when he is angry, though he is kind enough if humored. Still, I warn you, he gets angry easily. The dwarves all gathered round when they heard the wizard talking like this to Bilbo. Is that the person you are taking us to now, they asked. Couldn't you find someone more easy-tempered? Hadn't you better explain it all a bit clearer, and so on? Yes, it certainly is. No, I could not. And I was explaining very carefully, answered the wizard crossly. If you must know, his name is Beorn. He is very strong, and he is a skin changer. What, a furrier? A man that calls rabbits conies when he doesn't turn their skins into squirrels? Asked Bilbo. Good gracious heavens, no, 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 said Gandalf. Don't be a fool, Mr. Baggins, if you can help it. And in the name of all wonder, don't mention the word furrier again as long as you're within 100 miles of his house, nor rug, cape, tippet, muff, or any such other unfortunate word. He is a skin changer. He changes his skin. Sometimes he is a huge black bear. Sometimes he is a great, strong, black-haired man with huge arms and a great beard. I cannot tell you much more, though that ought to be enough. Some say that he is a bear descended from the great and ancient bears of the mountains that lived there before the giants came. Others say that he is a man descended from the first men who lived before Smaug or the other dragons and came into this part of the world, and before the goblins came into the hills out of the north. I cannot say, though I fancy the last is the true tale. He is not the sort of person to ask questions of. At any rate, he is under no enchantment but his own. He lives in an oak wood and has a great wooden house. And as a man, he keeps cattle and horses which are nearly as marvelous as himself. They work for him and talk to him. He does not eat them, neither does he hunt or eat wild animals. He keeps hives and hives of great fierce bees and lives most on cream and honey. As a bear, he ranges far and wide. I once saw him sitting all alone at the top of Carrack at night, watching the moon sinking towards the misty mountains, and I heard him growl in the tongue of bears. The day will come when they will perish, and I shall go back. That is why I believe he once came from the mountains himself. Bilbo and the dwarves now had plenty to think about, and they asked no more questions. They still had a long way to walk before them. Up slope and down dale they plodded. It grew very hot. Sometimes they rested under the trees, and then Bilbo felt so hungry that he would have eaten acorns if any had been ripe enough yet to have fallen to the ground. It was the middle of the afternoon before they noticed that great patches of flowers had begun to spring up, all the same kinds growing together as if they had been planted. Especially there was clover, wavering patches of coxcomb clover and purple clover and wide stretches of short, white, sweet, honey-smelling clover. And there was a buzzing and whirring and a droning in the air. Bees were busy everywhere, and such bees. Bilbo had never seen anything like them. If one was to see me, he thought, I should swell up as big again as I am. They were bigger than hornets. The drones were bigger than your thumb a good deal, and the bands of yellow on their deep black bodies shone like fiery gold. We are getting near, said Gandalf. We are on the edge of his bee pastures. After a while they came to a belt of tall and very ancient oaks, and beyond these to a high thorn hedge through which you could neither see nor scramble. You had better wait here, said the wizard to the dwarves, and when I call or whistle, begin to come after me. You will see the way I go, but only in pairs. Mind about 5 minutes between each pair of you. Bombur is fattest and will do for 2. He had better come alone and last. Come on, Mr. Baggins. There's a gate somewhere around this way. And with that, he went off along the hedge, taking the frightened hobbit with him. They soon came to a wooden gate, high and broad, beyond which they could see gardens and clusters of low buildings, some thatched and some unshaped logs, barns, stables, sheds, and a long, low wooden house. Inside, on the southward side of the great hedge, were rows and rows of hives with well-shaped tops made of straw. The noise of the giant bees flying to and from, crawling in and out, filled all the air. The wizard and the hobbit pushed open the heavy creaking gate and went down a wide track towards the house. Some horses, very sleek and well-groomed, trotted up across the grass and looked at them intently with very intelligent faces. Then off they galloped to the buildings. They have gone to tell him of the arrival of strangers, said Gandalf. Soon they reached a courtyard, 3 walls of which were formed by the wooden house and its 2 long wings. In the middle was lying a great oak trunk with many lopped branches beside it. Standing near was a huge man with a thick black beard and hair, and great bare arms and legs with knotted muscles. He was clothed in a tunic of wool down to his knees, and was leaning on a large axe. The horses were standing by him with their noses at his shoulder. Up, here they are, he said to the horses. They don't look dangerous, you can be off. He laughed a great rolling laugh and put down the axe and came forward. Who are you and what do you want? He asked gruffly, standing in front of them and towering tall above Gandalf. As for Bilbo, he could easily have trotted between his legs without ducking his head to miss the fringes of the man's brown tunic. I am Gandalf, said the wizard. Never heard of him, growled the man. And what's this little fellow? He said, stooping down to frown at the hobbit with his bushy black eyebrows. That is Mr. Baggins, a hobbit of good family and unimpeachable reputation, said Gandalf. Bilbo bowed. He had no hat to take off, and there's a picture of an eagle right here. The eagles helped them escape. And was painfully conscious of his many missing buttons. I am a wizard, continued Gandalf. I have heard of you, if you have not heard of me. But perhaps you have heard of my good cousin Ragnarast, who lives near the southern borders of Mirkwood. Yes, not a bad fellow as wizards go, I believe. I used to see him now and again, said Beorn. Well, now I know who you are, or who you say you are. What do you want? To tell you the truth, we have lost our luggage and nearly lost our way, and are rather in need of help, or at least of advice. I may say that we had rather a bad time with the goblins in the mountains. Goblins? Said the big man, less gruffly. Oh ho! So you've been having trouble with them, have you? What did you go near them for? We did not mean to. They surprised us at night in a pass which we had to cross, and were coming out of the lands over the west into these countries. It is a long tale. Then you better come inside and tell me some of it, if it won't take all day, said the man leading the way through the dark door that opened out into a courtyard of the house. Following him, they found themselves in a wide hall with a fireplace in the middle. Though it was summer, there was a wood fire burning, and smoke was rising to the blackened rafters in search of a way through an opening in the roof. They passed through this dim hall, lit only by the fire and the hole above it, and came through a smaller door into a sort of veranda, propped on wooden posts made of single tree trunks. It faced south and was still warm and filled with the light of westerning sun which slanted into it, and fell golden on the garden full of flowers that came right up near the steps. Here they sat on wooden benches while Gandalf began his tale. Beorn's Hall. And Bilbo swung his dangling legs and looked at the flowers in the garden, wondering what their names could be, as he had never seen half of them before. I was coming over the mountains with a friend or two, said the wizard. Or two? I can only see one, and a little one at that, said Beorn. Well, to tell you the truth, I did not like to bother you with a lot of us until I found out if you were busy. I will give a call if I may. Go on, call away. So Gandalf gave one long shrill whistle, and presently Thorin and Dori came round the house by the garden path and stood bowing low before them. 1 or 3 you meant, I see, said Beorn, but these aren't hobbits, they're dwarves. Thorin Oakenshield at your service. Dori at your service, said the 2 dwarves, bowing again. I don't need your service, thank you, but I expect you need mine. I'm not over fond of dwarves, but if it is true that you are Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thor, I believe, and that your companion is respectable, and that you are enemies of the goblins and are not up to any mischief in my lands, what are you up to, by the way? They're on their way to visit the land of their fathers, away east beyond Mirkwood, said Gandalf, and it is entirely an accident that we are in your lands at all. We are crossing by the high pass that should have brought us by the road that lies to the south of your country when we were attacked by the evil goblins, as I was about to tell you. Go on telling then, said Beorn, who was never very polite. There was a terrible storm. The stone giants were out, hurling rocks, and at the head of the pass we took refuge in a cave. The hobbit and I and several of our companions. Do you call 2 several? Well, no, as a matter of fact, there are more than 2. Where are they? Killed, eaten, gone home? Well, no. They don't seem at all to have come when I whistled. Shy, I expect. You see, we were very much afraid that we were rather a lot for you to entertain. Well, go on, whistle again. I am in for a party, it seems, and 1 or 2 more won't make much of a difference, growled Beorn. He is, after all, a bear. Gandalf whistled again, but Nori and Ori were there almost before he had stopped. For if you remember, Gandalf had told them to come in pairs every 5 minutes. Hello, said Beorn. You came pretty quick. Where are you hiding? Come on, my jack-in-the-boxes. Nori, at your service. Ori, at... They began, but Beorn interrupted them. Thank you. When I want your help, I will ask for it. Sit down and let's get on with this tale, or it will be supper time before it is ended. As soon as we were asleep, went Gandalf, a crack at the back of the cave opened, and goblins came out and grabbed the hobbit and the dwarves, and our troop of ponies. Troop of ponies? What were you, a traveling circus, or were you carrying a lot of goods? Or do you always call 6 a troop? Oh no, as a matter of fact, there were more than 6 ponies, for there are more than 6 of us. And, well, here are 2 more. Just at that moment, Balin and Dwalin appeared and bowed so low that their beards swept the stone floor. The big man was frowning at first, but they did their very best to be frightfully polite and kept nodding and bending and bowing and waving their hoods before their knees in proper dwarf fashion, till he stopped frowning and burst into a chuckling laugh. They looked so comical. Troop was right, a fine comic one. Come in, my merry men. What are your names? I don't want your service just now, only your names, and then sit down and stop wagging. Balin and Dwalin, they said, not daring to be offended, and sat plop on the floor, looking rather surprised. Now go on again, said Born to the wizard. Or where was I? Oh yes, I was not grabbed. I killed a goblin or two in the flash. Good, growled Bjorn. It is some good being a wizard then, and slipped inside the crack before it closed. I followed down to the main hall, which was crowded with goblins. The great goblin was there with 30 or 40 armed guards, and I thought to myself, even if they were not all chained together, what can a dozen do against so many? A dozen? That's the first time I've heard 8 called a dozen, or have you still got more jacks that haven't yet come out of their boxes? Well, yes, there seem to be a couple more here now. Fili and Kili, I believe, said Gandalf, as these two now appeared and stood smiling and bowing. That's enough, said Bjorn. Sit down and be quiet. Now go on, Gandalf. And that's where we are for this one, and we'll soon do another.